You're listening to the Talon Talk podcast on Talon Television.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Talon Sports Talk podcast. I'm Austin Speaker.
I'm Mitch Courtney.
And I'm Jaden Ceravolo.
And let's get down to it. Well, guys, baseball playoffs are in more than full swing now, as we already have a World Series team in there at the Cleveland Indians as they beat Toronto in 5 games. What are your thoughts on that series?
Well, my previous prediction stood true. The Indians pitching staff shut down the bats of the Blue Jays, and it looks like the Blue Jays team is about to be dismantled. Encarnacion and Bautista are free agents. They do still have Donaldson there. It's a bargain. He's putting up MVP numbers, but they're not paying him top dollar. But I like the Indians. I think they're going to go far with that staff.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, Jaden, you predicted the Blue Jays to win, and I know their offense was very prolific. We saw what they did against Texas, but were you surprised with how slow their bats were against that really tough Cleveland staff and bullpen?
Yeah, I'm very surprised. As you were saying earlier, Mitch, they were shut out 3 out of the 4 losses. And I was just very surprised that Cleveland could even won under the circumstances. They had no Brantley, no Salazar, and then Bauer's finger. And then just to come and win in 5 games is just, I don't think anyone expected that. But Cleveland stand at top in 2016. Got the Cleveland's won. Let's see if they can win a World Series.
Yeah. And I almost agree with you last week when you were talking about that high-flying offense with Toronto, and I was my mind was kind of thinking, yeah, their bats are just too good to slow down. But my gut was just like, you just can't look at that on paper, and my gut just told me the Cleveland is in it to win it. I really do think that the Cavaliers winning kind of has momentum for the city.
Yep.
I think the fan base is just rallying behind them, and hashtag Rally Together is going all over the place on Facebook and Twitter. The circumstances were tough. I'm not talking about Jose Bautista's circumstances. I'm talking about Cleveland's with Bauer's finger, with no Carrasco, no Salazar, no Michael Brantley, who was an MVP candidate last year.
Yep.
But it is cool to see that a team like that's standing in the World Series now.
No Yan Gomes.
No Yan Gomes, that's right. He was their starting catcher to begin the year. But good for Cleveland. Congrats to them. Cleveland's definitely a sports town. They deserve another championship like that. But now we're going to go over to the NLCS, where it's tied at 2 right now. And you got John Lester tonight for the Cubs against Kenta Maeda for the Dodgers. What do you guys see in that series?
I think Cubs fans were holding their collective breaths when they lost Game 3. They're down 2-1. They're all saying, here we go again. It's the same old Cubs for the last 108 years. It's about to be 109. But they come out yesterday, score 10 runs, and now Cubs fans are rallying behind this team. They think that they really have a shot at getting to the series.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, they put up that 10 spot yesterday. Anthony Rizzo finally came to play, had a big day at the plate, and they got Lester at the mound. So, I mean, it all adds up for take the series at 3-2.
Yeah.
We'll take a lead in the series, that is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're going to come away tonight with a lead. They're going to end up 3-2 after tonight. To go about the Cubs' offense is that even though they scored 10 runs last night, before they scored their first run last night on that RBI single by Wilson Contreras, before that they were scoreless in 23 innings. The Cubs went 23 innings without scoring a single run against the Dodgers. I mean, they did face a juggernaut in Kershaw, who I think is this year's Madison Bumgarner. Yep. He's just dominating this postseason, and it is just crazy to see how Cubs offense with Rizzo, Bryant, Zobrist, Baez is having a great. There's just so many weapons, and they couldn't score. But yeah, they really came to play last night against the rookie Urias.
Right, with the 10 runs, it took 3 hours to get through 6 innings. We had media professionals online, on Twitter, even some MLB players saying that these games are taking too long. Talks of maybe the pitch count from the minor leagues making its way up to the major leagues.
Yeah, and what are the odds that you guys see this series going to Game 7? We got Lester tonight, Game 5, probably Kershaw in Game 6, and then, I mean, that adds up for a 7-game series.
I definitely think it's a high possibility. I feel like Joe Madden and Dave Roberts are trying to get wins any way they can here, because the Cubs have the second worst offense in terms of batting average against left-handed pitching, only trailing the Dodgers. Okay. So if you got Lester going, the Dodgers have virtually no chance. So they're going to throw Maeda, who can give them a good game. Maybe they can squeak out a win but they really don't have a chance. So what does Dave Roberts do? He puts Kershaw in a game where he's not going against Leicester. So now you are looking at a 3-3 split with ultimately Arrieta and Rich Hill being the deciding Game 7.
That Rich Hill. We're back to Rich Hill, and we're going to continue to talk about Rich Hill, but I'm just hoping that the Dodgers don't advance so we don't have to talk about Rich Hill anymore.
I completely agree with you there, Mitch.
Oh, my God. Mitch just does not like Rich Hill. It's not that he doesn't like Rich Hill. He's so old.
So
He's so
He's
old.
been around the league a little too long, playing
He's
for what,
been
9 to
around.
10 teams.
Journeyman is an understatement for Rich Hill. He just needs to hang his cleats up after the season ends.
Well, maybe he'll do it with a ring on his finger, so I guess we'll see.
It's hard to do that. It's hard to say that when he's having a Cy Young
Right.
candidate kind of
Yeah,
year,
see,
though.
he's pitching well this year, and you got to give him credit for that. It's just I cannot believe that guy is still pitching in the league.
It did kind of come out of nowhere with what he did with the A's and what he's doing with the Cubs. So now, to kind of hold true with our predictions from last week, if we can kind of just, give the cap to Arrieta there, that if it is Game 7, Arrieta Hill in Chicago, you kind of like the Cubs' favor in that. So if we do assume Cubs, Indians, Andrew Miller being the MVP for the Indians in the ALCS, he was just dominating out of the bullpen. Terry Francona was not afraid to use him in save situations. He brought him in the 5th and 6th inning situations, too, just to stop bleeding. So with that bullpen being so good, even though they are kind of a depleted starting staff, how do you see the Indians against the Cubs?
I think they have a good shot against the Cubs. I mean, Francona is a very good manager, and he's learned to put his guys in spots where he thinks that they're probably going to succeed. And you saw it last night with Ryan Merritt, a guy who is making his second career start, goes 4 1/3, 2 hits, and no runs against a good lineup. And now you're looking at a Cubs lineup that's also potent, but I think that pitching staff and the way Francona uses it is going to be deadly.
Yeah, Mitch, you hit the nail on the coffin with that one. I think if that pitching staff can stay true, that I think the Indians will take it. And I'd say 6 games. They've dominated all their competition thus far.
Yeah, the Cubs definitely have some flashes there where they'll score 10, 12, 8 runs, and then they'll also score nothing for, like I said earlier, 23 straight innings without scoring a run. So I think the Indians do have a good shot against the Cubs. If it is a World Series like that at this point, I see it going either way, with a lot of games being 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, that kind of game.
Can't sleep on the Dodgers, though, so we can't assume.
You can't, yeah, we can't assume anything at this point. The Dodgers can do anything. I mean, Rich Hill's been pitching well, Clayton Kershaw. You really just never know what could happen. It only just takes one bad day for a pitcher.
Right. And Arrieta got roughed up in Game 3. It might happen again in Game 7, but he's a big-time player, so I think he would come through in a Game 7 if there is one.
Absolutely. So when the World Series is set, I think we can wait for a little bit to make our predictions. We can wait for next week for that.
Yep.
So to end the baseball segment, we're going to go over to hockey. News in the NHL. We're going to start with the Sabres. They are up and down so far. I mean, only scoring 4-1 against a Canadiens team who did not have their star goaltender in there. And then they come out and score 6. I know it's the Oilers, and they're not exactly a powerhouse team, but to score 6 goals against the Oilers, it's very up and down, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's a defense that's depleted, and a guy in net there, Talbot, who is up and down, but nobody expected the Sabres to put up 6 on that team, especially with the speed that they possess in their forwards, and even some of their defensemen are pretty quick. I don't know. The Sabres are doing what they can to keep the ship above the water, and Leonard is playing okay. He played good in Game 1, 2 goals allowed against Edmonton, but only 18 shots against Calgary, and he allowed 3 goals.
Yeah, that's a tough percentage to live by when you're a starting goaltender.
And Austin, you were pretty accurate with the up and down comment. I mean, in Game 1, the Sabres got beat pretty handily. And then on the flip side, in Game 2, they were the ones dominating. And then they had a really close game in their third game. So they've done a little bit of everything so far. But Ryan O'Reilly's stepping up for the team. He's got 5 points so far. And it was nice to see Kyle Poso get that goal on his second shift to the Sabre. But as you were saying last week, a lot of even distribution through the team. No one's dominating as of yet. I mean, I guess you can say O'Reilly's probably been the star so far for the team. But, Jonta's getting goals, Molson, just a lot of random guys out there.
I think the Sabres have a big issue. They have that top line with O'Reilly, Okposo, and Reinhart, but after that, no consistency. Yeah. So you've got guys that are just playing with each other one night and Bilesma switching things up the next. So I think it's important for them to find something that works early on until Eichel and Kane get back.
Exactly. And speaking of Eichel and Kane, do you think, just to kind of play devil's advocate here, if we can just say that Okposo, O'Reilly, Reinhart, with those guys being Um, I would say stars, or at least very well known names, guys that you gotta watch for day in day out. Do you think if those guys can kind of keep it at 500, if the Sabres are a 500 team, let's just say 20-20 by the time we get Eichel and Kane back, do you think they have a shot to be an 8 or 7 seed in the Eastern Conference?
I guess being 500 wouldn't be a bad position to be in, but I think they're looking for more at that point. But if they're 500 before they get Eichel and Kane back, I think they definitely could make a playoff push for that 7 or 8 seed. As predicted at the beginning of the year, that's where I had them being. So without Eichel and Kane, I would think that they wouldn't get it there. But, I mean, if they're in the position you're saying, I think they are a playoff team.
I think they do have a chance to keep the boat above the water, so to speak, and keep this team at 500. It's just they have a lot of issues without Eichel and Kane, and you're not going to be scoring, and they're pretty slow on defense. You've got Ristolainen, who's quick, and he can keep up, but Bogosian and Georges and even McCabe seems to be a step behind at times, and I think that's going to be their biggest issue, especially with Leonard in that, who hasn't shown really any type of consistency.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Ristolainen definitely seems to be their only elite defenseman. I mean, he's still looking for his first goal, so I think he has 5 assists maybe, leading the team in that category. But yeah, they're a team that has, like, at times you can see they have that spark, but then there's times where they're just nothing's there. So they just need to have that consistency, just light the fire under their rears and get going.
Yeah, to stay with the Eastern Conference, Pittsburgh Penguins made a contract extension today to their goaltender Matt Murray. 3 years, $11.25 million. Jay, and before the show, me and you were talking a little bit about that, and you did say a comment that Murray isn't quite at star level yet. Yeah. So what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate on that comment?
I mean, if you just look at, the contract kind of reflects it. He didn't get paid that extreme star money. But I think if he performs what they expect him to, at the end of this contract, I think that's when he'll get his next big payday. I mean, he's definitely proved that he's got elite potential, but I don't think he's proved that he's elite yet. He just hasn't been here long enough.
I agree. I don't think he's there yet, but he did show them enough last year to where they could say, maybe we'll give this kid a bridge deal. 3 years, $11 million. It's a pretty good payday for a guy in his position who, before last year, nobody had really heard of him. So I think he's made a name for himself, and I think he's going to be in for another big payday at the end of this one.
Yeah, so when 3 years are up and he's done and he's going to be in his mid-20s, he'll be about 27, 26 when this contract is up, I believe. By that time, you think he'll get a much more big contract. He has that potential to get there.
For sure.
Definitely, if he can bring another cut back to Pittsburgh, he'll be looking for another big payday. At the end of the day, that's all they care about.
Yeah. And speaking of goaltenders, got a big news out of L.A. today. Jonathan Quick is going to be out for 3 months after injuring his groin. He's going to require surgery on that. How are the Kings going to keep their ship above water? I mean, I know we talked about the Sabres with our depleted forwards, but if you don't have a goaltender like Jonathan Quick, it's hard to sustain a championship quality team like LA is so used to with a backup behind him.
Right, I think it's going to be tough for LA too. This is the second time that Quick has injured his groin, and he's going to be out long term. And their backup is Peter Budaj, former Colorado Avalanche and Montreal Canadiens, but he's not much of a goaltender at the NHL level. He's basically hanging around league average, maybe a little below average, but the Kings are really going to have to score and play some good defense, and that's what they're known to do. So maybe they can right the ship and keep this team where they need to be until he gets back. But 3 months is a long time for a goaltender to be out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see if that high-octane offense and very good defense will be enough to even get them in the playoffs. That's probably what they're playing for at this point, is to get into the playoffs and get Quick back up to make a playoff run. But we'll see if they'll get there without Quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And to stick with the NHL, I know you guys had a couple games you wanted to focus on. For Mitch, I know you wanted to talk about a little bit the Winnipeg Jets and Maple Leafs game that happened last night. Rookie for Winnipeg, get a hat trick.
Right, Patrick Laine, the big Finn, him and Puljujärvi coming out of the draft this year. People thought that they were good enough to be number one picks in almost any other draft. And Laine showed it last night, a hat trick in a game they were down 4-1. Matthews didn't show too much, but you've got to give some credit to the Jets as a team. Laine is coming into a team that's much more established than the Leafs. And they had a stat last night, around 28% of the players that were playing in that game were Calder eligible. So two super young teams, maybe a little bit of that inexperience is what led to the collapse by the Leafs last night.
Yeah.
In my mind, if Austin Matthews doesn't score 4 goals, he's a scrub.
It's looking like that. This youth is. I mean, you got Matthews and Line are both leading the NHL in goals. I mean, it's early. A lot of people are sitting there with 4. McDavid's up there, so a lot of them are scoring in bursts. Like McDavid had a hat trick in the first night. Matthews obviously had those 4 goals in the first night, and then Line had that hat trick. So let's see if they can start, getting a point a night and see if they can be long-term stars.
And Jaden, you were talking about a game earlier before our podcast started. You wanted to bring up the tough loss for the Sabres against Calgary in overtime. What were your thoughts on that game?
Oh, God. I mean, Sabres look good at times, but it was a rough one for them. The first goal, the ref blew the whistle. Do you want to explain that a little bit, Mitch? It was a little confusing for me. He blew the whistle. It looked like the goalie laid down to stop play, but then they scored off of it.
Right, they counted the goal anyway, and it was sort of a play where everybody in the arena thought that the play had been blown dead except for the Flames, who went ahead and pushed it in for the goal. But a tough one there for the Sabres, and it looked like they were being outplayed for most of that game. Calgary outshot them. I forget what the numbers were, but by a lot. And the Sabres really didn't deserve to win the game, but they played well enough to stay in it to the end. And then a controversial call in overtime. Sam Reinhart in his own end, cross-checked and boarded by Sean Monahan, but no call, and then they feed it out in front and score the game winner.
Yeah, there was, a lot of tough breaks. Most of the goals seemed like tough breaks for the Sabres that game. And also when Foligno went to clear out that puck, went right off a skater's skate and perfectly right in front of the net, and they score off of it.
But I think it was a ref skate.
Yeah, ref skate. That's what I meant to say there.
Even worse.
Even worse. And Foligno showed his anger after that play. Just obviously very tough break for them there.
Yeah, I know it's only 3 games in. It's very small sample size for a team like Buffalo, but what's your evaluation? I mean, maybe we can talk about this in the coming weeks. We don't have to talk about it now, but because it is such a small sample size, but they're scoring. They have opportunities. Their offense seems how can I put this? Just overall quicker. They're passing the puck. Sorry. Just a basketball starting up. Passing the puck, they're flying down the ice, they're creating opportunities, they're finding open lanes down the ice as they're crossing the blue line. They seem like they're a high-energy team that could really surprise some people as they keep showing up.
To me, I think we have to give credit to Dan Bilesma. He's had a year with this team now. This is his 2nd season with the Sabres. But he's been known to get young players to play up to their full potential and even exceed that at times, and I think he's showing it this year with the Sabres. Without Eichel, without Kane, and they're still creating chances and making these games close.
Yeah, like you said, young potential. Nick Baptiste just got his first NHL game the other night. He's sitting at +1, so I guess that's a positive takeaway. They found a goal with him on the line, and I would say he looked pretty good and comfortable in his first game.
Yeah, he's a quick kid. He can really fly from blue line to blue line, and I think that's what they're looking for. They're going to probably slot him in the 4th line, so he might be playing with guys like Delorier, maybe some Foligno or Grant.
Yep.
Maybe even some Tyler Ennis will play opposite him, and I would like to see that 2 guys that can really fly out there. And
yeah, that'd be a nice pairing.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for the NHL section of the show. So we've covered, just to recap, we've talked a lot about the ALCS and NLCS, and then early predictions for the World Series, but we're not going to get too carried away just yet. We'll have our full predictions for the end of the World Series in next week's show. Then we just went over to the NHL, which is just talking about the Sabres game against Calgary, just the Sabres in general, how they look early on, as well as Matt Murray's contract extension and Jonathan Quick's injury. So now we're going to go over to the NFL side of things, and big news for the Buffalo Bills is, 4 straight is great. They've played an easy schedule without Brady and Kaepernick. West Coast offense coming into Buffalo was never a good time for them. So 4 straight for Buffalo, but now they got to face a division rival in Miami with Shaq Lawson coming back. And reports say, Rex says he's at 100%. Mitch, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, apparently Lawson had been playing almost his entire college career at less than 100%, and he feels great right now. I think the most important thing for them is to just ease him in slowly. You don't want to throw him in full speed right away. I think the best course of action for them is maybe to give him some time subbing in for Alexander or Hughes and just sort of let him ease in. But the other big story that we haven't touched on yet is LaShawn McCoy. He injured his hamstring in practice, and in my opinion, he shouldn't even be going hard enough in practice to do something like that. He's a guy that the Bills need. He's crucial to their success, and getting injured in practice is just something that we can't have.
Yeah. Like you were saying on your Twitter yesterday, I believe it was, Mitch, that you know what you have in LaShawn McCoy. He's back to shady form this season. He's absolutely tearing up the league. We have 140 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. Like, he's just killing it. Why is that guy even practicing? I mean,
Right.
you just go through walkthroughs and, you got to take it easy, especially an injury-prone guy like Shady McCoy.
Right. Keep him loose, keep him healthy. I would even go as far as to wrap him in bubble wrap. Whatever you have to do to keep that guy healthy, because he's the guy that's going to take them to where they want to be, and if he's out, it's going to be a big loss for them.
Yeah, Thurman Thomas came out and said earlier in the week that if no one else around the league is talking about it, I'm sure people are, but Thurman Thomas definitely has Shady McCoy pegged as an early MVP consideration, and I agree with him 100%. Without Shady in Buffalo, Gillislee is a fine running back. He's a good backup. You throw him out there, he'll run. He's
Right.
fine. But Shady just does things from the line of scrimmage that no one else can do. I know Ezekiel Elliott's having a great start to the year. I know David Johnson's doing really well for Arizona. But the Bills' offense without Shady McCoy is an 0-6 team, not 4-2. And I think he definitely deserves MVP consideration. And to go off what you're saying, Mitch, what I agree with you. I'm just asking, what are you doing? Shady, go through walkthroughs, go through game plans against Miami, and then just go, do cardio on the bike for an hour or something.
Go 25% if you have to. Like you said, Gillislee is serviceable, and he's had some good games for the Bills. You look at last year against Washington where he busted off a big touchdown run. Even at the end of last week's game against San Francisco, he had a touchdown run. You got Jonathan Williams. He's serviceable. But now is a time where Bills fans are really saying, I wish Carlos Williams had come to camp in shape, because this is a game that they could use him in.
Yes. Well, to go, hopefully, just to get my hopes up a little bit, is that it's just a little bit of a tweak. Maybe it's not too bad. He rests it today and tomorrow. Maybe he travels to Miami. He's feeling fine. Hopefully he's out there and he's ready to go. But Gillislee is serviceable. We'll see what they can do. Miami has a really tough defensive line when you got Mario Williams back there and Dom Kung Su.
They're not playing like the defensive line that they're
Right.
about to be, though.
They're not, especially for what they're being paid for.
Yeah.
They all got huge contracts back there, so you would think that Miami would have a better pass rush, even though they did beat Pittsburgh last week.
Yeah, they're trying to make up for the loss of Olivier Vernon with the 2 signings, Mario Williams and Cameron Wake, but let's face it, those guys are out of their prime, and they're playing like it right now. Mario Williams played 12 snaps in the last game with no injuries, so he's basically just being phased out of the defense because he's not performing.
Yeah, this is in my opinion, a joke of a Miami Dolphins team. But the Bills can't go into this game looking like that, even though it probably is the case. Because I think it'd be very Buffalo Bills-like to lose this game to the Dolphins. And then, coming up, they're so high, they have this huge hype, and then just drop an egg. That's happened in Buffalo Bills history, is it not?
The Bills are going to Bills, and that's what...
Yeah.
They do have a tendency to play down to their opponent and then also play up to their opponent. It's the kind of thing where I could definitely see the Bills lose. I agree with you 100%, Jaden, is that if they lose this game to Miami and then it's like, well, there's the Bills we all know and love. But in a few weeks when you go to Seattle on Monday night, that could be a game that the Bills somehow win.
Patriots before that,
Yep,
right.
with
Patriots before
Brady.
that, yeah.
So if that does happen, that'd be a 4-3 Buffalo Bills with the Patriots coming to town, then going to Seattle.
Yeah.
So this is a big game. It might be an
Exactly.
easy game, but it's a big game.
How about predictions? What do you guys have for the game? Do you think the Bills are going to Bills, or do you think the Bills are finally going to take
Let's start
that
with
step?
Jaden. We'll go around the table.
I want to say the Bills are going to Bills. I do, but I think it's different this year. I've said that probably 5 years, but I'm going to go 31-13 Bills.
I agree. I think that there's a different aura about this team with Rex Ryan, and his defense is playing okay at times, pretty good in the last few weeks. And the run game has been there. Tyrod has not made too many mistakes. I think the Bills take this one. I think it's going to be a little closer than people expect. 24-13. I'm looking at the big loss for the Dolphins at safety, Rashad Jones, 2015 Pro Bowler.
Yep.
He's a quarterback of that defense. They lose him for the season. That's a big loss.
Yeah, I think the Bills will end up winning this game. Ryan Tannehill has just not looked comfortable at all in the pocket. And when you got Alexander rushing at him, who's a top sacker in the league, when you got a guy like Kyle Williams who can just muscle his way through any center and guard. They're gonna make the and also Jerry Hughes. They're gonna make the pocket very uncomfortable, and also on the Bills' offensive side, if Shady's healthy, and even if Gillislee bounces to the outside, they can cause some damage out there. Plus Tyrod can use his legs. I think the Bills are gonna win this one, 31-21.
Yeah, I think with Tannehill playing the way he does, and in his career against Buffalo, it's not been good. 2-6, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So we'll look to see more of that. I'll be in Miami for the game. I don't want to see the Bills because I don't want to go all the way to Miami and see that. I'm hoping they take the next step.
Very anxious to see if the Bills are happening now on Sunday.
Bills are going to make you want to shout.
Yeah, I don't know about that. The Raiders.
Well, it could be a good or bad thing. If you want to shout in anger or if you want to shout in happiness, we'll see.
Either way, you shout. To mention earlier is that you do got Brady coming into Buffalo. With Brady making his return to the Patriots and healthy Gronk. Edelman is healthy. James White is healthy. And
Martellus
Bennett should be healthy. And we've seen Patriots teams in the past. I'm not saying Martellus Bennett is Aaron Hernandez, but if you got two feasible tight ends out there,
I'd say yes.
Gronkowski's Gronkowski. And if you got another feasible tight end like Hernandez Bennett, or even if they use a guy like Scott Chandler, totally fine. When you got two tight ends out there for Brady to work with, and you also got some healthy receivers, can this Patriots team be stopped at this point?
They're not going to be stopped for an extended period of time. They might lose a couple more games this season, but I think you're looking at a Tom Brady who's playing at the top of his game still. As frustrating as it is, they're healthy now. Gronk is healthy, and Bennett is playing well. The Bills, if they can steal the game in Miami, I don't want to even use the word steal because they should win, but if they can beat Miami, and you take maybe one from either New England or Seattle, they're in a super good spot. And the games against Cincinnati, Pittsburgh coming up are winnable. So we'll see what the Bills do.
I was just actually going to go off of that, is that the Patriots are so good. Haunts me to say it, but they are just, it doesn't really haunt me because they've been so good for so long. But I really think that this year there is something different about the Bills. We've talked about it, and I think they have a chance. If they can beat Brady at home, think about it. This will be the first time in a while, if we can beat Brady at home, that the Bills would be 2-0 against the Patriots this season. I honestly can't tell you the last time that's happened. I don't know if it's happened.
I don't think it's happened while Brady has been a member of the Patriots, and I think it'd be exciting when and if the Bills win in Miami.
Yep.
It's going to make that game really fun. Even if the Bills end up losing that, they should make it close, especially if McCoy is back at 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And other news around the league is that you got Big Ben Roethlisberger. Started out as like, maybe he'll come back in a couple weeks, but now you got 4 to 6 weeks lingering over his head. So what do you guys think the future of the the Steelers, is going to be, whether they use Landry Jones or if they just do a heavy dose of running with Lev Bell?
Well, yeah, it'll be Landry Jones, but Le'Veon Bell, he's going to get the bulk of the carries there. They're not going to risk Jones throwing more than, say, 20 passes. But with Roethlisberger, they say 4 to 6 weeks. He's been known to come back earlier from injury. He's a big, tough guy. I would probably venture to say he's back in 2 to 3 weeks.
That'd be bold, and I'm hoping for that for the sake of my fantasy football team. But, yeah, like you said, Landry Jones, he knows this playbook very well. He's been in Pittsburgh for a while, so it's not a huge controversy that they don't have Big Ben. Obviously it is, but like in terms of backups, Landry Jones isn't a bad option. They're going to be running Lev Bell, like you said, a lot. And let's see if Antonio Brown can be Antonio Brown without Big Ben. He will still put up numbers, but I don't think he's going to put up AB numbers. But I still think the Pittsburgh Steelers are still going to be just fine without Big Ben.
Right, I don't think he will put up AB numbers. He has never caught a touchdown pass from any other quarterback. He's only caught touchdown passes from Big Ben, so
that's crazy.
Hopefully he can step it up, and maybe they'll throw his way a few times.
Yeah, we'll see. You got this week, the Steelers are playing, let me just check here. The Steelers are going to be playing they have bye week this week. Looks like. Let me just double check. Nope, sorry. They play the Patriots this week, then they have a bye week. So you're thinking after that bye week, you got 2 weeks of no Big Ben, and I know it's 4 to 6 weeks. Like you said, he could come back earlier. 3 weeks, maybe pushing it, but we'll see if he comes back in 3 to 4 weeks. But as I got my schedule up, guys, it's time for that part of the podcast when we do our games to look out for. So let's start with Mitch.
I've got the Ravens and the Jets. Not a game that people are really going to tune in and watch, but I might be one to tune in and watch that one for a bit. You've got Geno Smith coming in for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Basically, the Jets are just going to choose now who's going to throw their interceptions, because Geno has been that bad over his career. In 32 career games, he has 27 touchdowns and 36 picks.
My lord.
He's not a,
My lord.
That is awful.
It's not good.
He is not a good NFL quarterback. The Ravens are looking to stay alive in the AFC wildcard race. I think the Ravens take this one in dominating fashion, 28-10.
Before we get to Jaden's game, I want to ask you, Mitch, do you see Bryce Petty at all making an appearance in this game?
He might. If Geno comes out there and plays like Geno Smith, then yeah, I think you could see Petty. I don't think they're ready to throw Hackenberg in there. I just don't think he's ready to play at the NFL level yet. Eventually he will be, but I think Petty is a guy that the Jets feel comfortable with, and if Geno struggles early, you might see him in this game.
All right. And Jaden, what's your game to watch?
My game of the week is going to be the Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. We got the Vikings undefeated. They're coming off a bye. Minnesota might be the biggest story of the NFL so far, having Teddy Bridgewater going down with that injury. AP's out. Matt Clear, the offensive lineman's out. So just talk about playing under circumstances and performing. Sam Bradford's coming to play. Then the Eagles, why this game's so significant is they've lost 2 straight. So they're 3-2 at this point. I'm just curious to see how Carson Wentz is going to play against this defense. Without a doubt, the toughest defense he's faced in his NFL career. And then something to note on. Upcoming games for the Eagles, they play the Vikings this week, and this is in consecutive order. They got the Vikings, Cowboys, Giants, Falcons, Seahawks, Packers. That has to be the toughest stretch of games.
An
this
unbelievable
season.
stretch, and I think if you looked at that schedule at the beginning of the year, you might say, oh, the Cowboys and Giants, those are winnable games, but the Cowboys are 5-1.
Yep.
The Giants are playing well on offense, not so much on defense, but Carson Wentz started off hot. He's really cooled off in these last few games, and I think Doug Peterson has put some plays into that playbook just to get him comfortable. He's throwing a lot of short passes to get in rhythm. I don't think that he's at the level that most people think he's at yet. I think he's a good quarterback, but he definitely needs some time to develop. I think you see the Eagles maybe finishing 8-8 this year.
Yeah, we'll see how this is going to be the test for Carson Wentz this stretch of games. We're going to see how he handles adversity. We'll see if it shoots his confidence right in the foot. It probably will. But I see Minnesota coming to Philly and winning 24-13. You know, maybe the Eagles will score a touchdown in that defense of Minnesota, but yeah, 24-13. I think it's going to be a tough one for Philly.
Yeah, a lot of people think that bye weeks are supposed to help you get some rest in you, maybe go over some more plays, go over your next opponent, but it's been nothing but bad news for Wentz coming out of that bye week. What I'd like to see him do more is use his tight end in Ertz. Sproles is such an electric back there. If you can have him and Matthews on the field at the same time, it'd be electric. But I agree. Wentz he's human.
Yeah.
He was a robot, and now he's human. You know, he can do wrong.
Same with Dak. Threw that
Right,
first interception last week as a Colt going into Lambeau.
Yep.
So we note on that.
I've also got the Vikings in that game. I don't think they're going to put up too many points. The Eagles defense is playing well this year under Jim Schwartz.
Yep.
I have the Vikings in this one, 21-10.
Yeah. My game to watch for, it's going to be an NFC West rivalry. You got the Seahawks in Arizona. That's going to be a Sunday night game. That's going to be pretty important. And the reason I say that is just because Arizona came off that huge win against the Jets. I'm not saying it was huge in terms of team morale or team boosting. I'm saying it was huge because it was 28-3. It was a slaughter. And, I mean, I just go back to the Bills. I can't believe the Bills lost to that kind of Jets team. It was really making me sick watching that game.
And beat that kind of Arizona Cardinals team.
And beat that kind of Arizona Cardinals team. But you got Carson Palmer throwing to Larry Fitzgerald, and also John Brown is out there, and he's a very fast, elusive receiver, kind of like a taller Darren Sproles kind of guy if he was out in the slot.
Yeah.
But the Seahawks, obviously, Russell Wilson, he just makes plays with his feet. You got a tough secondary with Arizona with Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu. Very, very good secondary. We'll just see if they can contain Wilson in the pocket and make him use his arm to make plays down the field. And it'll be interesting to watch with that, as well as if Palmer can just keep it going. If he can keep that momentum going, that huge game against the Jets, if he can keep throwing the ball down the field, and if Fitzgerald can keep having what is, in my eyes, a career year. He is just coming. It's almost like a resurgence. He was down for a few years, and now Larry Fitzgerald is back to his late 2000s self.
Right. Who do you have winning that game?
So I got the Seahawks going into Arizona winning that game, just because you do have the Legion of Boom. Their defense is not the Jets' defense. Their defense is a top 5 defense in all of the NFL. While you got Carson Palmer coming off a really good game, I just don't see it. I just don't see the honeymoon phase lasting too long, and I think that it'll be a close game. It'll be a close, medium-scoring game. I think the Seahawks are going to take it 24-21.
See, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum here. I think the Seahawks are going to win this game regardless, but I don't think the Seahawks are as good as everybody thinks they are. Russell Wilson is playing well right now. They don't really have much of a run game. Kristen Michael has been okay, and Thomas Rawls yet to return from injury. I think they're a very beatable team, especially if you look at Buffalo's schedule. They've got Seattle on a Monday night. That's a big game, but and another big storyline from this game is the fact that Carson Palmer went down with an injury at the end of that Jets game. So if it's Drew Stanton in there, I think that the Seahawks are going to feast and it's going to be a blowout. I think Palmer's going to play, though, so I think it'll be closer, but I still think that the Seattle Seahawks take this
My
one.
prediction is the assumption that Palmer will play, and he will play 4 quarters. If Palmer does anything less, if he gets dinged up again, has to sit out for any period of time, even if it is just one drive that Stanton's got to be out there, then the Seahawks could easily run away with it and make it a much wider margin of scoring. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a close Seahawks win.
I'm actually going to be against you guys in this one. I have the Cards going. Assuming Carson Palmer plays, if Stanton plays, I'm going to go to the Seahawks. But assuming Palmer plays, I'm going to have the Cardinals. I'm going to have them winning 2017. I think it's going to be a very good game. As you're saying, Mitch, I think the Seahawks are a little overrated. Don't have a run game as of now. We'll see if it comes back to life when Thomas Rawls comes back. But, this Cardinals defense is just going to put all their focus on Russell Wilson. They're going to make his night tough. They're going to put the pressure on him, and then we'll see if that great secondary in Arizona can stop the receivers. And if you do, then I don't see where that Seattle offense is going to put points on the board.
All right, so what do you got for a score? If Carson Palmer plays 4 quarters and he does anything like he did against the Jets, throw a few touchdowns, and then David Johnson just kind of also carries the squad, can't forget about him. If you got a guy like David Johnson going off, Carson Palmer playing the full time, what do you have a score for Cardinals beating the Seahawks?
Well, if they play like they did against the Jets offensively, the sky's the limit. I think that they could win 31 to however many points their defense allows. But I don't think they're going to do what they did against the Jets. That's a Jets team who their defense was on the field a lot thanks to Fitz. But, yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case against Seahawks D. But I guess we'll see.
All right.
I'm going to go 23-14 Seattle, and if Stanton's in there, it might be ugly. It might be 35-10.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Talon Sports Talk Podcast. Before we close, I do have a legit question. I haven't really talked to you guys much about it this year, just because my season hasn't been so great. How's your fantasy seasons?
I'm doing pretty well right now. I'm sitting at 4-2, looking to get another big win this week. Drew Brees is keeping me alive. A little frustrated with DeAndre Hopkins. What is Osweiler doing down there, not getting him the ball? But, yeah, I'm looking pretty good right now.
All right, Jade?
I'm in a few different leagues. But in my main league, I'm 5-1, so I'm looking good. I'm at top of the league. I lead in most categories, but Big Ben just went down. So let's see what Kirk Cousins can do for me. I'm praying for you, man. Let's go. But in my other league, I'm 2-4, but I just defeated Austin. So I got the bragging rights right there.
You did. You did take it to me on that one. Other than Lev Bell, I had no one for me this week against you. But yeah,
I'm 2-4, so I'm not making the playoffs.
So you're hoping that Kirk Cousins likes that. You're hoping that you
Yeah.
can be saying you like that at the end of this week.
I definitely will like that if Kirk Cousins goes off.
Yeah, like I said, I just lost to Jaden in one of my leagues, but in my big money league that I'm with a few friends at home, I'm a 500 team. Marcus Mariota, I'm starting to play him more and more just because Blake Bortles has shown me nothing. But when I went to the draft, I was really high on Blake Bortles. My wide receivers were Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Allen Hurns was in my flex with the Blake Bortles connection. I was very high on that, and they have shown me nothing. I'm actually starting to use more Marcus Mariota and Chris Hogan if he's healthy in my flex. It's a deep 12-man league, so just got to play matchups at that point. But that's going to do it for this week's edition. Until next time, I'm Austin Speaker.
I'm Mitch Courtney.
And I'm Jay Saravo.
Thanks for listening.